The call came exactly 7 days after we moved into the house. I remember because I was still unpacking the kitchen when my phone buzzed across the marble countertop. Unknown number. Normally I ignored unknown calls, but we've been expecting deliveries all week. I answered without thinking. Hello. There was silence. Not the awkward kind. The kind that makes you wonder whether someone is listening instead of speaking. Finally, a woman's voice. Soft. Older. You've been there a week now. I frowned. I'm sorry, who is this? I used to own your house. I smiled automatically. Oh. Hi. Is everything okay? Another pause. Then she lowered her voice. Don't tell your husband I called. My smile disappeared. What? Come alone. I'm not comfortable with. You deserve to know what's inside that house before someone else decides for you. The line went dead. I stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. Outside, my husband Ethan was unloading the last of our moving boxes from the garage. He looked up through the window and smiled at me. I forced myself to smile back. But for the first time since buying the house, it didn't feel like home anymore. 3 months earlier, Ethan and I thought we'd found the deal of a lifetime. The house sat on the edge of a quiet neighborhood in Northern Virginia, tucked behind towering maple trees and bordered by a narrow creek. It wasn't extravagant, just beautiful. White brick, blue shutters, wraparound porch, a swing that creaked gently in the wind. Inside were hardwood floors, oversized windows, and the kind of old craftsmanship you couldn't afford anymore. It felt warm, lived in, real. The asking price made absolutely no sense. Nearly $100,000 below comparable homes. Our realtor, Denise, explained it with a shrug. The previous owner wanted a quick sale. Why? She relocated. Just like that. Denise hesitated. Personal reasons. That answer bothered me. Not enough to walk away. Just enough to remember. Her name was Margaret Holloway. She'd lived there almost 30 years. Widowed. No children listed on any paperwork. She sold the house in cash. Signed everything without negotiating. Then disappeared. During closing, I noticed something strange. Margaret never looked at Ethan. Not once. Every question she answered, she directed toward me. When I thanked her for taking such good care of the house, her eyes lingered on mine for a second too long. You'll understand someday. I laughed awkwardly. I'm sorry. She glanced toward the dining room, then shook her head. No. She signed the last page, stood, and left. That was the only conversation we'd ever had. Until the phone call. I didn't tell Ethan. Not that day. Not because I wanted to hide anything. Because I didn't know what I'd even be telling him. Some strange woman had called. Maybe she regretted selling. Maybe she had dementia. Maybe she simply missed her old home. There were 100 innocent explanations. At least that's what I kept telling myself. That evening Ethan grilled burgers while I unpacked books. He was humming. Happy. This house represented years of saving. Late nights. Skipped vacations. Second jobs. We'd finally made it. You okay? He asked. Yeah. You've asked me that 3 times today. I have. He smiled. You've been distracted. I'm just tired. He kissed my forehead. We're home. Home. The words sounded different after that phone call. Around midnight I woke up thirsty. The house was unusually quiet. No traffic. No television. Just the old wood settling. I padded downstairs toward the kitchen. As I passed the dining room, I stopped. One of the chairs had moved. It wasn't pushed under the table anymore. It sat several feet away, facing the hallway. I stared at it. Maybe Ethan moved it. Maybe I had. Moving weak blurred together. Still. I pushed it back. Drank some water. Went upstairs. Before falling asleep, I glanced at Ethan. He hadn't moved. The next morning the chair was out again. Same position. Facing the hallway. I laughed to myself. What are you doing? Ethan asked. Did you move this chair? He looked confused. No. Seriously. I haven't even been in here. He pushed it back under the table. Old houses shift. I wanted to ask how shifting floors could move furniture. Instead I stayed quiet. Later that afternoon our next-door neighbor appeared carrying blueberry muffins. Her name was Evelyn, 72. Sharp eyes. Sharper memory. She'd lived there longer than anyone else on the street. I've been waiting to meet you. She looked around the house before stepping inside. It looks different. You knew the previous owner? Oh yes. Were you friends? Evelyn hesitated. Sometimes. Not exactly an answer. We chatted about the neighborhood. Trash pickup. Schools. Restaurants. Then she stopped in the hallway. You've opened the west bedroom? I nodded. That's going to be my office. She went strangely pale. Oh. Is something wrong? No. But her expression said otherwise. Before leaving, she grabbed my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. If Margaret contacts you... I froze. Don't ignore her. My heart skipped. You know she called me? Evelyn slowly released my hand. So she already has. How did you know? Instead of answering, she walked out. That night I finally searched Margaret online. Almost nothing came up. No Facebook. No Instagram. No LinkedIn. Just an old newspaper article. 23 years earlier. Local woman helps rescue child after storm. The article showed Margaret standing beside firefighters, holding a little girl wrapped in a blanket. The caption read, Margaret Holloway with 6-year-old Lily Foster after yesterday's creek flooding. Lily Foster. I didn't know why the name stayed with me. It just did. The next morning another unknown number called. This time I let it ring. A voicemail appeared seconds later. I almost deleted it. Instead, I listened. This is Margaret. Her voice sounded tired. I know you're frightened. I'm asking for 30 minutes. Nothing more. If your husband comes, I won't be there. Click. I deleted the voicemail before Ethan came home, then immediately regretted deleting it. Why? Because now I couldn't replay it. Couldn't analyze her tone. Couldn't decide whether she sounded dangerous or desperate. Friday afternoon I drove to the grocery store. Halfway there I realized someone was following me. Dark blue SUV. 2 cars behind. Every turn. Every stoplight. Still there. I tested it. Turned into a gas station. The SUV drove past. I laughed at myself. Paranoid already. Great. As I loaded groceries into my trunk, someone spoke behind me. You came. I nearly screamed. Margaret stood 3 parking spaces away. She looked nothing like I remembered. Thinner. Exhausted. Gray hair tied loosely beneath a baseball cap. Dark circles under her eyes. She kept glancing around the parking lot, like someone expected to find her. You called. I did. You scared me. I know. What do you want? She took 1 cautious step closer. Not here. No. I won't hurt you. I don't know that. You will. She reached into her purse. Every instinct told me to back away. Instead, she handed me an old brass key. Small. Worn smooth. What is this? It opens something your husband can't know about. My stomach tightened. What are you talking about? She looked directly into my eyes. Has he found the basement yet? I blinked. Our house doesn't have a basement. She closed her eyes for just a second, then whispered. It still does. I stared at her. That's impossible. It isn't. Our inspection. Missed it. Our blueprints. Were changed. You're not making sense. She leaned even closer. When you get home, count the steps. What? From the kitchen to the back wall. I frowned. Then compare them to the outside of the house. I felt irritation replacing fear. This is crazy. No. It's arithmetic. Before I could answer, a black pickup truck pulled into the parking lot. Margaret saw it. Every ounce of color drained from her face. Oh God! What? I shouldn't have come. She grabbed my wrist. If anyone asks, you've never seen me. She hurried toward an old sedan parked at the far end of the lot. The pickup never slowed. It turned after her. I watched both vehicles disappear into traffic. When I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Count the steps. Ridiculous. Still, after dinner, while Ethan watched baseball in the living room, I grabbed a tape measure. Kitchen wall to back exterior. 22 feet. Then I walked outside. Measured the same section from the exterior. 28 feet. I measured again. Same result. 6 feet missing. I checked another wall. Perfect match. Only the back section was wrong. I stared at the house, my pulse slowly climbing. Old houses had thick walls, not 6 feet thick. I searched online for hidden rooms. False walls. Historical renovations. Nothing explained the measurements. At least, Nothing comforting. Around 10 that night, I unlocked the hallway closet to store cleaning supplies. The brass key Margaret had given me was still in my pocket, almost absent-mindedly. I tried it on the closet's tiny old lock. It didn't fit. I tried the attic door. Nothing. Kitchen pantry. Nothing. Back porch storage. Nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed something I'd somehow overlooked before. Inside the laundry room, behind the washing machine, was a narrow wooden panel painted the exact same color as the wall. No handle. No hinges visible. Just there. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. The brass key felt suddenly heavier in my hand. From the living room, Ethan called out casually, "Claire, have you seen the TV remote?" I looked at the panel, then at the key, then back toward the sound of my husband's voice. Margaret's words came rushing back. "Don't tell your husband." I slid the key into the tiny, almost invisible keyhole. It fit perfectly. The key turned with almost no resistance. A soft metallic click echoed inside the wall. I froze. From the living room, Ethan called again. "Claire, did you hear me?" I pulled the key back out so quickly I nearly dropped it. "Yeah," I answered, forcing my voice to sound normal. "It's under the couch." A few seconds later I heard him laugh. "Found it." I stayed in the laundry room another minute, staring at the panel. Whatever I'd just unlocked, I wasn't ready to open it with Ethan 10 feet away. I quietly slid a basket of towels in front of the panel and walked back into the living room. Ethan smiled without looking away from the game. "You've been organizing for 20 minutes. I know. You'll unpack everything in a week at this rate." "I can't help it." He reached for my hand. "You don't have to make this place perfect tonight." His hand felt warm. Safe. For one terrifying second I almost told him everything. The phone calls, the grocery store, the key, the missing 6 feet. But Margaret's warning kept replaying in my head. "Don't tell your husband." It wasn't that I trusted her. I just needed to understand why she'd said it. I barely slept. Every creak sounded deliberate. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps. At 3:17 a.m., I heard something that snapped me awake. A dull thump, directly below our bedroom. Then another. 3 slow knocks. Knock. 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 I held my breath. Beside me, Ethan kept sleeping. Maybe the pipes. Maybe the house settling. Then, silence. The next morning, Ethan left early for work. He kissed my forehead. "I'll be home around 6. Drive safe." "You okay?" "I'm fine." He looked at me for a long moment. "You sure?" "Just tired." After he left, I waited exactly 5 minutes. Then I locked every door, closed every curtain, walked straight into the laundry room. The basket of towels still hid the panel. I moved it aside, inserted the brass key, turned it. Click. This time I pulled gently. Nothing. I pulled harder. The panel shifted outward less than an inch. Dust drifted into the air. Someone hadn't opened this in years. Maybe decades. I wedged my fingers into the gap and pulled. The entire wall section swung open. Behind it was a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Cold air rushed upward. Not damp. Just still. As though the air itself hadn't moved in years. I stood at the top, unable to convince my legs to move. The flashlight on my phone barely reached the bottom. There were 13 wooden steps, each one coated in dust. Except the top 3. Someone had walked here recently. Every instinct told me to close the door. Instead, I started down. Each step groaned beneath my weight. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. At the bottom was a small room, maybe 12 feet across. Stone walls, concrete floor, shelves lined one side, an old wooden desk set against another. There was no electricity, no windows, no obvious reason for the room to exist. Boxes filled the shelves, each carefully labeled. Taxes, receipts, insurance, photographs. The organization surprised me. This wasn't someone's forgotten storage room. Someone had maintained it. I opened the nearest box. Family photographs. Hundreds of them. Most showed Margaret over the years. Christmas dinners, birthdays, gardening, neighbors. Then I noticed something strange. There wasn't a single picture of a husband. Or children. She always stood beside friends. Neighbors. Pets. Never family. A leather journal rested alone on the desk. Its cover was cracked with age. Inside the first page were only 6 words. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I swallowed hard. The handwriting matched the signature on our closing papers. Margaret's. I turned the page. The entries began 28 years earlier. Nothing unusual at first. Home repairs, recipes, gardening notes. Then the tone changed. He says I'm imagining things. Another entry. The noises started again last night. 3 weeks later, someone entered the basement while I slept. Months later, the sheriff found nothing. Then, if anything happens to me, don't trust the obvious answer. I stopped reading. Someone had highlighted those words in yellow. Recently, the marker ink still looked fresh. A sound upstairs. I jumped. Footsteps. No, the refrigerator compressor. I laughed nervously at myself. Then I noticed something else. The dust on the floor. It wasn't untouched. There were footprints. Not mine. Not old. Fresh enough that their edges remained sharp. They led deeper into the room and stopped at the stone wall, as if someone had walked into solid concrete. I examined the wall carefully. Nothing. Just rough stone. Until my flashlight caught a tiny metal latch hidden between 2 rocks. I pulled it. A section of wall shifted inward. Another hidden door. My heart pounded. Behind it wasn't another room. It was a narrow passage, only wide enough for one person. The ceiling was low, barely 6 feet. Cold air drifted through it, meaning it led somewhere. I only walked 10 feet before hearing a noise. Not inside the passage. Outside. A car door slammed. I checked my watch. 11:42 a.m. No one should be home. I hurried back upstairs, closed the hidden door, locked the panel, moved the towels back into place, just as someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow knocks, exactly like the ones I'd heard overnight. I looked through the peephole. A man I'd never seen before. Mid-50s, dark jacket, holding a clipboard. I opened the door only a few inches. "Can I help you?" He smiled politely. "I'm looking for Margaret Holloway. She doesn't live here." "I know." His smile never changed. "Have you spoken with her recently?" "No." It wasn't technically true. He studied my face. "If she contacts you, I'd appreciate a phone call." "Who are you?" "I'm an old friend." Something about him felt rehearsed. "What was your name?" He hesitated, then smiled again. She'd know. He handed me a business card, completely blank, front and back. No name, no number, nothing. Before leaving, he looked past me into the hallway. "You've opened the laundry room already." It wasn't a question. He walked away before I could respond. I locked every deadbolt, closed every blind, then called Margaret, straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. Finally, 30 minutes later, my phone rang. "Margaret, someone came." "I know. You know. They've been watching the house." "Who?" "I don't have time. You need to explain." "Did he ask about me?" "Yes." "Did you tell him about the basement?" "No." "Good." My patience snapped. "Stop telling me pieces. I'm living in your house. I found a hidden room. I found your journal. I found another tunnel." Silence. Then, "You went into the passage." "Yes." "You weren't supposed to." "What is it?" "You need to leave." "What?" "Today." "I'm not abandoning my home because of cryptic phone calls. It isn't your house they're interested in." "Then what?" "You." The word landed like ice water. "Me." "They think you know where it is." "I don't know what you're talking about." "I know." "So tell me." She whispered something I almost didn't hear. "They'll make the same mistake again." The line disconnected. That evening I decided not to tell Ethan. Not yet. I hated myself for it. Every lie made the next one easier. He came home carrying pizza. My favorite realtor called. I looked up. "Denise." She wanted to know how we're settling in. "What did you tell her?" "That everything's great." He laughed. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "No reason." He sat beside me. "You've been jumpy ever since we moved." I forced a smile. "Moving is stressful." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I could tell." He wasn't convinced. Later that night, while Ethan showered, I searched every public record I could find. Property history, building permits, tax records. The basement didn't exist. According to every official document, our house had been built on a concrete slab, no underground space, no renovations, nothing. Someone had erased it completely. At 1:08 a.m., my phone vibrated. One new text. Unknown number. It contained only a photograph. No words. The image showed me, standing in my own kitchen, taken through the back window. Less than an hour earlier. My blood ran cold. Another message arrived. Stop looking. A third message followed immediately. Next time he'll see it too. I couldn't breathe. Someone had been outside our house. Watching us. Watching me. I quietly walked to the bedroom window and carefully pulled back the curtain. The backyard looked empty. The swing moved gently. There was no wind. Then, just beyond the tree line, a tiny red light blinked once, like the recording light on a camera. It vanished almost instantly. I stood there frozen, until I heard another sound. Not outside. Inside the house. A floorboard creaked downstairs. Slowly, deliberately. Someone was walking across the kitchen, and Ethan was still asleep beside me. The floorboard creaked again. Slow. Measured. Not the random groan of an old house. A footstep. Someone was downstairs. I turned toward Ethan. He was still asleep, one arm thrown over the blanket, breathing deeply. For one panicked second I considered waking him. Instead, I slipped quietly out of bed. My phone was in my hand before I realized I'd grabbed it. No flashlight. No sound. I eased the bedroom door open. The hallway was dark. Only the faint blue glow of the night light near the stairs lit the landing. Another creak. This time from the kitchen. Whoever was down there wasn't trying to be silent anymore. They wanted me to hear them. Every horror movie I'd ever seen told me not to go downstairs. Instead, I did exactly that. Halfway down the staircase, I could see into the kitchen. Nothing. The island. The refrigerator. The back door. Everything looked normal. Then I noticed the laundry room door. It was open. I'd closed it before bed. I knew I had. I stepped into the kitchen. Who's there? Silence. I reached for the light switch. The room flooded with light. Empty. I hurried to the laundry room. The basket of towels I'd used to hide the secret panel had been moved. Not knocked over. Moved. Carefully. My pulse hammered in my ears. I slid the basket aside. The hidden panel was slightly open. Barely an inch. Someone else knew about it. I yanked the panel open. The staircase disappeared into darkness. I aimed my phone flashlight down. No one. At least not that I could see. Then something caught my eye. A white envelope rested on the third step. It hadn't been there that morning. I was certain. With trembling hands, I picked it up. Only 2 words were written on the front. For Claire. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It wasn't handwritten. It had been typed. She lied about why she sold the house. Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. Just one sentence. I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around so fast I nearly screamed. Ethan stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. What are you doing? I shoved the envelope behind my back. I heard something. He looked at the open panel. What is that? There it was. The moment I'd been trying to avoid. I couldn't hide it anymore. I found it yesterday. You found a hidden staircase. And didn't tell me? I wanted to understand what it was first. His face fell. You lied to me. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I didn't know who to trust. His expression changed. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. I need to tell you everything. For the next hour, I told him about Margaret. The phone calls. The meeting at the grocery store. The brass key. The basement. The journal. The strange man with the blank business card. The texts. The photograph. Every secret I'd been carrying. When I finished, Ethan didn't say anything. He just stared at me. Finally, he asked quietly, You thought I was part of this? No. Then why keep it from me? Because she specifically said not to tell you. And you believed her? I didn't believe her. I was trying to figure out why she'd say it. He looked genuinely hurt. We're supposed to figure things out together. I know. I'm sorry. He sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then he surprised me. We're going downstairs. What? Together. The basement felt different with both of us there. Less frightening. More real. Ethan examined everything carefully. The shelves. the desk, the journal. Then he reached the stone wall. You said there's another passage? I nodded. I pulled the hidden latch. The wall slid open. He stared. I don't understand. Neither do I. We walked deeper this time. The passage stretched much farther than I'd realized. Maybe 60 feet. The ceiling gradually rose until we could stand comfortably. Finally, it opened into another room. This one was larger, cleaner, and far more disturbing. Metal filing cabinets lined the walls. There was an old wooden table in the center. On it sat a projector, boxes of film reels, and dozens of folders. Someone had turned this place into an archive. Ethan opened one of the filing cabinets. Inside were files, hundreds of them. Every folder had a person's name. Most meant nothing to us. Until one did. Lily Foster, the little girl from the newspaper article. I opened the folder. School records, medical reports, newspaper clippings, letters, photographs. It looked like someone had documented her entire life. This is creepy. Ethan nodded. Open another. I did. Different name. Same pattern. Another folder. Same thing. Every cabinet contained complete histories of people, birth certificates, addresses, employment records, medical information, private letters. Some of it couldn't possibly have been obtained legally. What is this place? Neither of us had an answer. Then I found a folder with my own name. My hands went numb. Claire Bennett. I looked at Ethan. Neither of us spoke. Slowly, I opened it. Inside was my driver's license photo, a copy of our marriage certificate, my college transcript, photos of me leaving work, photos of me grocery shopping, photos of me walking our dog from 2 years earlier, photos I never knew existed. Someone had been watching me long before we bought this house. There was even a handwritten note. Subject selected, March 14th, 2023. I couldn't breathe. Selected? For what? Ethan found another folder. His own. But unlike mine, it was almost empty. Only basic public records. Nothing else. No surveillance. No photographs. No notes. He looked confused. They weren't interested in me. My stomach tightened. Margaret's words echoed in my head. It isn't your house they're interested in. You. We searched the room for nearly an hour. At the back stood an enormous steel cabinet. Unlike everything else, it was locked. The brass key didn't fit. Neither did any key we found in the drawers. Ethan examined the hinges. Heavy. Very. He looked around. We'll come back with tools. As we turned to leave, a voice echoed behind us. You shouldn't open that. We both spun around. Margaret stood at the entrance to the room. She looked exhausted. Her clothes were soaked from the rain outside. For a long moment, none of us moved. You followed us. Her voice trembled. I followed them. What? They followed you here. She looked at Ethan for the first time. Really looked at him. I'm sorry. He folded his arms. I think we deserve some answers. You do. Start talking. Margaret slowly walked toward the table. I never wanted either of you involved. You already involved us. I know. She closed her eyes. The house was never the secret. Then what was? This room. She explained that decades earlier, her late husband, Daniel, had worked as an investigative journalist. Not for newspapers, for the federal government. Unofficially, his job was to document corruption powerful people couldn't allow to become public. Business executives, judges, politicians, organized crime. He never trusted computers. Everything stayed on paper. Hidden underground. This was his archive. Ethan frowned. If that's true, why didn't you destroy it? I tried, but Daniel made copies. Of everything. Every time I burned one file, another appeared. She looked toward the locked steel cabinet. That's where the originals are. I asked the question that had haunted me since the beginning. Why me? Margaret looked devastated. Because you have the same birthday. I blinked. What? As Lily Foster. What does that have to do with anything? She hesitated. They don't know Daniel had 2 separate witnesses. I was supposed to protect one. He protected the other. When Daniel died, they assumed the survivor was still hidden. I'm confused. So am I, Ethan said. Margaret took a shaky breath. They believe you're someone else. The room fell silent. They think. I'm Lily. Margaret nodded. They've thought that for years. I laughed in disbelief. That's insane. I know. My name is Claire. They don't care. They lost track of Lily after the flood. They've spent 23 years searching. They saw your birthday, your age, your appearance. They convinced themselves. I shook my head. This can't be real. Margaret reached into her coat. She handed me an old photograph. It showed 6-year-old Lily Foster. My heart stopped. She looked almost exactly like my childhood pictures. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same crooked smile. Even Ethan stared in shock. My God! Before anyone could speak again, a deafening crash echoed above us. The entire room shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Another crash. Closer. Someone had forced their way into the house. Margaret's face went white. They're here. The lights we'd connected to a portable battery flickered, then went dark. In the blackness, we heard footsteps, more than one person, coming down the hidden staircase. Slowly, deliberately, and then a man's voice echoed through the tunnel. We know she's down there. A pause. Bring Claire. The voice echoed through the tunnel. We know she's down there. Another pause. Calm. Almost patient. Bring Claire, and no one else gets hurt. Every muscle in my body locked. The darkness suddenly felt alive. I could hear at least 4 sets of footsteps above us. Not rushing. Not panicked. They were confident. As if they'd done this before. Margaret grabbed my wrist. They found the passage. Ethan stepped in front of me instinctively. No one's taking my wife. Margaret looked at him with surprising intensity. They don't want to kill her. He frowned. How can you possibly know that? Because if they wanted her dead, they would have done it years ago. The footsteps came closer. Flashlight beams danced across the walls. We had seconds. Margaret hurried toward the back of the archive room and shoved one of the heavy filing cabinets sideways. Behind it was another narrow opening. I stared. There's another tunnel. There always was. You never mentioned it. I never expected anyone to need it. She looked directly at Ethan. Take her. What about you? I'll slow them down. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. The first flashlight beam appeared at the end of the corridor. A man's voice. There. Margaret pushed us toward the opening. Go. The sound of running footsteps exploded through the tunnel. Ethan grabbed my hand. We ran. Behind us I heard Margaret shout, Wrong way. Then something heavy crashed to the floor. Someone yelled. Another voice cursed. Gunfire echoed once. The sound was deafening inside the stone passage. I stumbled. Ethan caught me before I fell. We kept running. The escape tunnel sloped upward for nearly 100 yards. The air became colder, fresher. Finally, Ethan pushed against a rusted metal hatch. It wouldn't move. He shoved harder. Nothing. Then I noticed a thick chain wrapped around the outside handle. We're trapped. No. Ethan backed up, then slammed his shoulder into the hatch. The old hinges groaned. Again. Again. On the 4th hit, the wood around the frame splintered. Sunlight poured through. We crawled out into the abandoned well behind the old church, nearly half a mile from our house. I stared in disbelief. No wonder nobody found it. Sirens echoed in the distance. Not close enough. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Ethan checked his. Nothing. The tunnel blocks reception. Behind us, another hatch slammed open. Someone else had escaped. We looked at each other, then ran. The church parking lot was empty except for one old pickup truck. Its keys were still inside. Seriously. Ethan laughed despite everything. I don't think God wants us walking today. He started the truck. The engine coughed, then roared to life. As we pulled onto the road, I looked back. 3 men emerged from behind the church. One pointed toward us. Another climbed into a black SUV. They're coming. For the next 15 minutes, it felt like we were inside an action movie. The SUV stayed 2 cars behind us, never getting closer, never falling back, just waiting. Finally, Ethan turned sharply into the county sheriff's office. The SUV continued driving. It never stopped. The deputy at the front desk looked skeptical. A hidden bunker? Secret files? People chasing you? I understood. It sounded insane. Until I handed him one of the folders we'd grabbed while escaping. He opened it. His expression changed immediately. "Where did you get this?" "From my basement." He looked at another deputy. "Call the sheriff." Now. Within an hour, the building was full of detectives, state police, federal agents. Everyone asked the same questions. Where was Margaret? How many people? What was inside the steel cabinet? Did we touch anything? Did we remove any files? I answered until I had nothing left to say. Then an older FBI agent walked into the room. He looked at the folder in front of him, then at me. What I'm about to ask may sound strange. I almost laughed. "Go ahead. Were you ever adopted?" The question hit me like a freight train. "What?" "It's just a question." "No. My parents are my parents. They're alive. They raised me." He nodded. "Good. Why ask?" Instead of answering, he slid a photograph across the table. It was another picture of Lily Foster. Not 6 years old this time. 16. The resemblance was unbelievable. Even I couldn't deny it anymore. The investigation lasted weeks. Our house became a crime scene. The neighborhood filled with reporters, excavation crews, evidence trucks, forensic teams. They uncovered far more than anyone expected. The basement archive contained over 4,000 files, most documented corruption stretching back 3 decades. Bribery, money laundering, judicial misconduct, corporate espionage, disappearances. Several cold cases were reopened within days. The locked steel cabinet took specialists nearly 18 hours to open. Inside were the original documents Daniel Holloway had spent years collecting, along with videotapes, audio recordings, signed financial records, enough evidence to destroy careers. And it did. Within 3 months, a retired judge was arrested. A former state senator was indicted. 2 business executives disappeared before warrants could be served. News channels called it one of the largest hidden evidence discoveries in state history. Daniel Holloway, once dismissed as a conspiracy-obsessed journalist, was finally recognized as the man who had preserved the truth. But one mystery remained. Where was Margaret? She vanished the night we escaped. No body, no arrest, nothing. Part of me feared the worst. Until 6 weeks later, a plain white envelope arrived at our temporary apartment. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Claire, by the time you read this, I'll be somewhere they stopped looking years ago. I'm sorry I involved you. I didn't choose you because you looked like Lily. I chose you because, during closing, I saw something in your eyes that reminded me of Daniel. You ask questions. You don't stop because someone tells you to. That's exactly why they feared him, and why I knew you'd eventually find the room. Take care of your husband. He trusts with his whole heart. Don't ever make him question that again. You already know how much it hurts. Thank you for finishing what we couldn't. Margaret." I cried harder reading that letter than I had during everything else. Not because of the mystery. Because she was right. Keeping secrets from Ethan had nearly broken us before anyone else had the chance. One evening, months later, Ethan and I finally returned to the house. Most of the hidden rooms had been sealed by investigators. The passageways were filled with concrete. The basement no longer existed. Legally, neither did the hidden archive. The kitchen looked ordinary again. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floor. The swing on the porch still creaked gently in the wind. For the first time, it felt peaceful. Ethan slipped his hand into mine. "So, you still want to live here?" I smiled. "I do. You aren't afraid anymore?" I looked around the quiet home. I don't think the house was ever haunted. It was carrying someone else's burden. And now it's just a house. The following spring, I planted white roses along the front porch, Margaret's favorite flowers. Evelyn, our elderly neighbor, wandered over with another batch of blueberry muffins. She smiled when she saw the flowers. "You finally understand." I nodded. "I do." She looked toward the house. "You know, Margaret loved that place." "I know, but she never thought it belonged to her." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Evelyn smiled softly. "She always said, 'We're only borrowing houses.' Eventually, every home belongs to someone else's story." Sometimes I still think about Lily Foster. The real Lily. Federal investigators eventually found her living overseas under a different name. She'd been protected exactly as Daniel intended. She testified, helped close the final chapter of the investigation. She sent us one letter, Only one sentence. Thank you for keeping strangers brave long enough for me to come home. I keep that letter inside the same journal Margaret left behind. The journal that began with 6 simple words. If you're reading this, I'm gone. She was gone. But because she trusted one ordinary woman she'd met for less than an hour, the truth she protected for nearly 30 years finally reached the light. And every time I walk through our laundry room, I still glance at the place where the hidden door used to be, not because I expect it to return, but because it reminds me that the most dangerous secrets are rarely buried underground. They're buried inside people. And sometimes, all it takes to uncover them is answering the wrong phone call on the 7th day in your new home.